Hello and welcome back to Channel England Football. My name's Gary, and this one hurts, doesn't it? It really, really hurts. You know, a week on now since the result, I'm still not over it. I've got loads of stuff I want to talk about, go over some of my thoughts and reactions to the whole game, and we'll have a look at, obviously, some of the big things that have come out of this. The racism, the charges by UEFA, where it leaves English football, what I think it means for English football, and then we'll look ahead to what awaits now the England national team as we try and move on from what essentially now is the greatest, but then also one of the most devastating nights of my time watching England in tournaments. So yeah, let's just get it out there. I'm absolutely gutted. You know, on the day, I just it cut me deep. I didn't speak for about a day. I felt like it was our time. You know, England, it was a different England. It was an England we've not seen in my lifetime. I'm in my early 30s, and bear that in mind because I'm going to be referring to that because it in the reference and the context of England that I know, I'm going to be going off what I've experienced in my lifetime watching England and how this result relates to that. As I was saying, you know, the tournament felt like a different England, but at the end, and I've heard a lot of people say this, it just felt like the Croatia game all over again. It felt like at the time when you needed England to be that new England, that Southgate England, it started to go back to the same old England. And we did exactly the same thing. An early goal now for England, the way we play under Southgate, an early goal for us is not an advantage. It almost forces our hand to sit back because we haven't got, and we did, and I'm not criticising Southgate too much, but we did lack the courage, didn't we, to go and get the winner, the decider, to take the game by the scruff of the neck. And it's exactly the same as the Croatia game, exactly the same. We thought we'd hold on to the 1-0 win. You know, the second half was just probably our worst performance of the entire tournament. The first half was great, actually in extra time we was alright as well, but it was just, we just lacked that killer instinct and that courage that you need to win tournaments, and it's disappointing. I mean, it's disappointing is just probably understating it, but it's so heart-wrenching that we just did not learn the lesson. And I know I said it in the match, I know loads of people were messaging me throughout the match saying it just felt like Croatia again. And everyone could see it coming, and you can say, you know, well, that was it. You know, we haven't got the talent. You know, we didn't have the talent on the day. Italy were the better team in the second half, but I agree with that. But then there's an aspect of that I feel like we allowed them to be the better team, the same way we did Croatia. And what annoys me is like the same way what happened with Croatia when we played them again only a few months later in the Nations League. We dominated them, and I feel like if we played Italy 2 months down the line, or whenever, within the next 12 months at Wembley in another tournament, whether it's a friendly or the Nations League, we are completely different for those 90 minutes. I know we are. And it's just that lack of courage from England that have cost us winning our first major trophy in my lifetime. And let's be honest, in most people's lifetime now. And that is really hard to take. It was there within the grasp. You know, we should have won that game. Like, we should have won the Croatia game, but we didn't. And, you know, you've got to say congratulations to Italy. I couldn't watch the celebration. I've not seen anything of the match. I can't even watch Shaw's goal again. It's just too painful at the minute, and it will remain so. You know, but like I said, it was the same old England, but it wasn't. You know, this is England in a final. Like I said, I've not seen England in a final. So it wasn't the same old England, but it just felt like that's what it came down to in the end, particularly with us losing on penalties. I'll come on to those in a second in regards to Southgate and decisions he was made. And, you know, I think some of the substitutions as well are regarding who we lined up to take those penalties. I just want to very quickly, for anyone, you know, who isn't fully aware of how much England fans have suffered over the years, and the most obvious way to sum this up is, like I've just said, in my lifetime, this is the first final England have ever made. You could suggest, and it isn't, you know, England fans being big-headed or anything like that, you would argue quite comfortably that there are five major countries within European football, both at club level and at international level, in terms of investment, in terms of their league. So you've got France, Germany, Italy, Spain and England. Now, to put England's performances in major tournaments into context, like I said, I'm in my early 30s and I've seen 4 of those teams So Spain, Germany, Italy and France, all 4 of those teams in my lifetime not only reach a final of a major tournament, but win the Euros and the World Cup. Every single one of those teams has done both in my lifetime. That then puts the parallel with England, and the overwhelming, no matter what you think of England fans about, you think that, England fans think they've got a God-given right to win tournaments. With the money we invest, with the size of our country, with the passion we have for the sport, with the interest we have for the sport, with our Premier League, with the finance that go into it, you cannot deny England as an international country have vastly, and I mean like overwhelmingly, underachieved at international level. And this, I'm afraid, that because this is the fine margin between winning and losing, it's great we've got to a final, and in the context of England's history, particularly over my lifetime, it is a great achievement. But in the context of history, this now goes down as another failure. And that is not being harsh, that is sport. You win or you lose. We lost. This now goes down as a failure. Another one, another what if, or another it should have been, or that's the year we should have won it, or it just goes on that list, and that is painful to accept as an England fan. And like I said, when you consider every other major country within Europe has won every single trophy there is to offer, in my lifetime, in those short 30 years, they've all won those things once, at least once. It makes that's the pain that England fans go through. We know as England fans that we could have the best team, or we could use a fantastic team, but we just cannot get over the line. And it's the same old story again. That is what that final felt like, and that is why this wasn't just. It's completely different for those other teams. If they lose a final, rightly so, because history tells them so. It is sad. It is a disaster, and it's something difficult to get over. But they know the likelihood is that they may get a chance to win it again. Or, most of them have got to more than one final in my lifetime. As an England fan, the only history and context I've got is that the likelihood is we may never, ever get to another final within my lifetime. We, of course, should, but England don't do it. And I don't know why. I cannot put my finger on why we fail. We fail over and over and over again as an international team. And as an England fan, first and foremost, country, way before any club, I am country first. That hurts, because we should be doing better. And Southgate, what he's done is, I think, is put us back where I think we should be. Not based on because I'm English and I'm big-headed, based on where we fit within the context of European football. Getting to semi-finals and finals of major tournaments is where we should be. The same way it's where France, Germany, Spain, Italy should be. However, we now need to be winning these tournaments. And this felt like it really hurt. It really hurt, because this was England's time to break that barrier, that duct. That sport is full of barriers, isn't it? How many records do we see in all sports where someone hasn't won in the ground for 50 years, or they've never won on Boxing Day for this year, or they don't do this on this. There's all these weird statistics within football that exist, and no one knows why, but they are real. They do affect, and England's is this getting over the line at tournaments. We cannot do it, and it goes down with Euro 96, Italian 90. It goes down as it could have been or should have been moment for England, and that for me is the hardest thing about this loss. I think if we're just then going to look at the game in general, I think England were the better team in the first half. I think we were just the better team in the first half. The second half, we didn't turn up, and that is the most disappointing. You felt it coming. Having said that, though, even more painful is that over the entire match, Italy never really created anything at all, and the goal was scrappy, and it was such a typical England goal to concede. The bad bounces of the ball, or, just missing somebody's toe or deflecting out to an Italian player. It was such an unlucky goal to concede. But we invited it on as well. We didn't offer anything in that second half. I think, obviously, there's been a couple of instances in the game as well where you could argue with the stamp by the Italian player and the pullback, I think it was by Chiellini on Saka, that there should have been red cards. I don't think... I'm not too bothered about the stamp, even though I think out of them all, that is the clearest red card. I think it is a red card. I think given where it was within the game, though, I don't think it would have made much difference to the game overall. However, I think the pullback on the neck by Keelan, I think there's only because of where Saka was through after. I think you could argue that that is a red card. Certainly England players in major tournaments have had red cards for a hell of a lot less than that, and it's cost us the game. And I think this is why a lot of England fans feel, they come back to those things, and it's because we're always on the receiving end of getting the red card, and other teams seem to get away with it, and it does feel a little bit like that. But obviously it isn't. I'm not a big believer in that. I do feel they even themselves out. But you could have argued that was a red, but I think it would have been a softer red than the stamp. But when we got onto the penalties, I think we've all got to admit, haven't we? As much as Southgate has nailed this tournament, for the most part, the Scotland game was, a disaster. But for the most part, Southgate has absolutely nailed this tournament, but he completely bottled it and messed up in that final, didn't he? Yeah, he did, actually. I was going to say just on the penalties, but it's not. It was on the game management from when we took the lead all the way through to the penalties. The penalty takers were baffling, to say the least. Absolutely baffling. I think when you're bringing players on to take penalties, that's fine. But I just feel like you do need to give them a couple of minutes just to even touch the ball. Obviously, not to get in the pace of the game. The penalty has nothing to do with the pace of the game, but just to touch the ball for confidence. You're bringing them on in a final of a major tournament. There was a few times when I'm looking at the touchline, I was thinking he's not going to bring him on. He's not going to bring him on, and the ball went out 2 or 3 times before he actually decided to bring them on. And I get why he was doing it, because he was bringing off players in. He put Rashford at right back, but I think that goes back to another mistake he made. Trippier, Walker, these 2 players should have been on the pitch to take a penalty. They should have been. I think Henderson obviously hasn't had the greatest record of taking penalties for England, but I think he should have done anyway as a senior player. I think he would have scored one. Shaw should have been stepping up. John Stone should have been stepping up. I think Rashford missed because I think he was literally just brought on to take a penalty. And that sometimes adds more pressure. I think the fact that he really didn't get a touch on the ball before that had a bit of an influence. But I think the Rashford miss is just something you can't negate for, because he would have taken, for any of us, he would have been in the top 5 to take a penalty. So I don't think you can blame Southgate for that. But obviously then you can clearly blame Southgate, not the players, but Southgate I think does have to take the blame. Not too much of a blame, but has to take the blame for Saka and Sancho, because they should not have been there. There's plenty of other players before them. From what I know, it's the first penalty either of them's ever taken professionally. I mean, when you start to think about it, it actually gets you really cross, and it just makes you think, why don't we think as England, why do we literally make our own mistakes? They should not have been anywhere near those penalties. Nowhere near. There's a whole list of players that I could have put there, probably even Pickford, before those 2 were taking a penalty. And I know I've got hindsight because they've missed. It's easy for me to say. I don't think any of us, though, would have had Saka in particular taking a penalty, never mind the 5th penalty. And that is another reason why it hurts. Italy clearly knew who was taking their penalties. It was the same people who were taking them the other night. It was senior players stepping up. For us, it wasn't senior players stepping up, even though from what I'm hearing they did, but Southgate didn't pick them. If that is the case, then it does land on Southgate. If it isn't the case, then it lands on the senior players as well. But as a collective, we messed up. And it makes me so angry, and I'm trying to calm not to go all out attack, because why mess up? We should not be messing up. It's not a place where you prat around putting a 19-year-old in to take a penalty, or think, I trust my players 100%. No, it's not about trust. It's about understanding that this is a huge occasion. Forget trust. Trust has nothing to do with it. Of course you trust them to take a penalty, but they should not have been there. There should have been leaders saying, whether that's Southgate, whether that's senior players saying, no, I am taking this penalty, or these are taking this penalty because they are our senior players and they've been there before. That is the most important, but they've been there before, and we didn't. And again, that's why it's so painful to take this loss. It's just our own mistakes, our own poor judgments, and it's just so disappointing. And as you'll say, I don't think I've never watched the Croatia game again. I know people have always spoken about Trippier's free kick. I've never seen it again. I can't watch a goal or score a goal in a major semi-final or final where it doesn't end in success. And you might call that a sore loser, but it's just too painful because the joy's not there. when you watch it, you just think, I know what comes after now. And in both occasions, I see it as a bottle job. And I'm 100% behind Southgate. He has to be the person that leads us into the next World Cup. But make no mistake about it, and I think it is a hard argument to argue against, we did bottle it, whether that is through courage of senior players either stepping up or demanding, or senior managers demanding who takes the penalties, and the total game management from when we took the lead. And we repeated history, which is another reason why it's just so painful. I just want to very obviously briefly touch on England's player of the tournament. I think England's player of the tournament is Pickford. I think I said it for a lot of the game. I think he only had one bad half in the whole tournament against Denmark. I think he was absolutely exceptional. And this is, again, not because England's been peppered, but on the games where we've had a lot of the ball, he was the best passer we had. He just made the right choices. The saves when he needed to were brilliant. In the penalty shootout, the poor bloke made 2 amazing penalty shootout saves. I think Pickford's done. The reason why it's Pickford and not Sterling is because I don't know what else Pickford could have done. And you could argue the same for Sterling. You could argue, well, what else could Sterling done? But obviously, maybe because of the system we play, but Sterling and Kane didn't really turn up in the final. Pickford did. And that's all of, and that's it. You can say Pickford had the chance to, but, Sterling's on the pitch at the same time. I'm not going to do player ratings, but for me, Pickford was our player of the tournament. I think he was the goalkeeper of the tournament, if I'm honest with you. And I think it's harsh to miss out on goalkeeper of the tournament in the starting 11 that did make it, but for me, Pickford was our player of the tournament. Please let me know below if you disagree or if I've missed anyone. So I just want to very, very briefly, and I do want to only very briefly touch on this, is the incident at Wembley, the disgusting, disgraceful scumbags who stormed Wembley. It's just ridiculous. You can draw these people. I can walk around, my town and my community. I can almost pick them out in town who would do this. However, it is a minority. It's a vast minority of people against the vast majority of people. Wembley and the police, anyone involved with any form of security of the day, are hugely to blame. Nowhere, I don't believe in blaming them above the fans. The fans are to blame, but they've got to look at themselves, Wembley and the police. I don't know why, but they seem completely unprepared for the fact that over probably about 250,000 people were going to turn up at Wembley without a ticket that day. I can't understand why they weren't prepared for that. You're hearing rumours about stewards being paid off. I hope that's not true, but it's just disgusting if it is. And it's just a few minority filthy scumbags who are letting this country down and giving us this reputation that I'm sorry, it isn't deserved. And that goes on to the disgusting, filthy, horrible racism after the game that we all knew was going to come. However, I just feel like what annoys me about the whole thing is that yes, it does happen, but this does happen in other countries as well. And it's not to excuse it, but I'm just saying it's the fact that England and England fans get labelled this. And the reason why I'm saying this is because me as an England fan would as well. If I walk around with an England flag now, I would easily get accused of being racist by certain people just because I like following the England national team. And it's not the case. Majority of England fans aren't like this. But I remember, I was watching the game and I was on Twitter at the time, straight after the final. And already people are saying, we were looking for the racist tweets. The way, straight away, people were just like, they're going to get racially abused. Now, Twitter was just full of people predicting that they were going to get racially abused. And my answer to that is, they are, because there's always idiots. There's always people who are going to be racist. And that might be my very awful, pessimistic look. I don't think we'll ever eradicate it. But with English press, English media, we highlight the filth and the scum that are in our country, but then they're also in every other country. But what it means is we get labelled, and associated with this, and that's why I'm not defending those people that say it. What I'm doing is defending the average English fan, and it is not the average English fan that is racist, that storms Wembley Stadium. But the way it's reported is that it is. It's that it's this massive, huge problem within English football, and it isn't. Italy, in Spain, particularly in Italy, I've seen some of the most horrendous racism. But English fans, and the way it's reported, because it's like it's amplified within English media, and what that gives us is this huge, awful, terrible reputation across the world as being something that I don't think we are. Yes, we've got, but every other country in the world has, and that doesn't make it right. But I am sick to death of England fans being labelled as something they aren't. But what these fans do is let the rest of us down. It's these minority fans' fault. I guarantee you now, those fans that storm Wembley have never been to an England game before in their life. I guarantee you now that they have no interest in following England in these up-and-coming fixtures now out of the tournament. I guarantee you now that they probably never even go and watch club football. It's the filth. Big events bring out sometimes the filth in society, and that's what it is. And the same for those England fans that, racially abused Saka, Sancho and Rashford at the end of the game. These are not fans that go week in, week out, or month in, month out, or follow England at any other time of the year. They are not. I've been talking to, and this is what this channel's allowed me to do on my Twitter account. I talk to a lot of England fans who go regular to games, and this culture does not exist. It doesn't. It just does not exist within the ground, within the stadium, amongst England fans, proper England fans. It does not exist. And I'm sick to death of us getting labelled with this, or the rest of the world thinking we're something different to them, when half the people that are looking at us, calling us this and that, in their own countries, they've got enough to worry about. Particularly in Europe. I think across the entire, all over Europe, I think we do pretty damn well week in, week out at club football in regards to racism. I'm not saying there isn't a way to go, but we do pretty damn well compared to some of these other countries. And I'm sick to death of us as England fans getting labelled as something we aren't. So very quickly then, obviously at some point I need to round this video off. I think England's overall performance in the game was only a 7 out of 10. I think overall we will all look back on this tournament. I'm going to do a video about England's tournament as a whole. Completely separate, looking at each game, looking at how we progress. But I think overall we will look back and say that it was a success. But to me, when you reach a final, you need to be winning it. So it was obviously going to go down as one of England's greatest ever tournaments, which is sad considering we haven't won it. But it's one of those things. Where does this leave England then going forward? So I've said on my last video before this one, I am sticking around. I am not going anywhere. I was making videos before the Euros. I'm going to make them after. Obviously, they're going to be different. I've got loads of different topics I want to discuss regarding the England national team, whether that's around Wembley, our bid for future, tournaments, upcoming games, the Nations League, World Cup qualifying, just players who we think should get in the next squad. There's loads of things I want to discuss and cover as we move forward. But where this leaves England now then, nothing really until September. So we are back in World Cup qualification matches come September, and we've got quite a tricky game actually away at Hungary on the 2nd of September at 7:45. So that'll be a really good game. In fact, the way World Cup qualifying's working, there instead of the 2 games together, they're grouping 3 together to try and squeeze it in before Qatar next year. So we've got Hungary, Andorra and Poland all within roughly a week of each other. So we've got Hungary on the 2nd of September. We've got Andorra, that's Hungary away, sorry, so tough game. Andorra at home on the 5th of September at 5 o'clock, you'd fancy us there. And then Poland, I believe, away on the 8th of September at 7:45. So actually, the next round of fixtures for England is a big test for England. You'd expect us to come through given the tournament we've had, but it's a big challenge now for England. Hungary away and Poland away aren't going to be walkovers in this at all. Obviously, we're in a really good place within the group. It's important against Hungary that we get the win, start to get the good feeling back into the squad, start to build up towards the World Cup. And yeah, come on England, I'll be covering that game as we move into September. Like I said, there'll be plenty of stuff I'm going to be covering moving forward anyway. There's a few things, I might even start then to get some guests on and stuff like that, see how that works. It gives me time to, between each video, rather than trying to upload 2 videos a week, it gives me time now to try and experiment how I can do this format differently, or how I can make these videos a little bit more interesting for you guys. So yeah, there might be a little bit of time between videos, but hopefully I'm going to try and make them a little bit more interesting. But thank you so much for everybody who has ever joined me throughout the Euros. I've had a ball. Thank you so much for everyone's podcasts. You know who you are, who's been putting those out. They've been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much to the genuine England fans the genuine England fans, the vast majority of you, who have painted England as a fantastic team to cover during a tournament and brilliant atmospheres. We will go again. Hopefully, come on, please all of us, believe that we will win something within our lifetime. And God, it chokes me up a bit to think that we never will, but we will. Come on, the World Cup, let's go again. But hopefully one day we will see England lift the trophy. But thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you're new. See you again next time.